Hello and welcome to Tar Heel Teachers at Home. I'm Marlo Artist. I'm the moderator of the program. Tar Heel Teachers at Home is an interview series focused on engaging North Carolinians in conversations around education. Each week, I'm happily joined by a wonderful panel of educators, each one representing a particular subsection of education. We'll start our introductions with our elementary school panelists.
Hi, my name is Amy Tart, and I teach 4th grade ELA and Social Studies for Clinton City Schools. You can follow me on Twitter at Cards for Scholars.
Hi, my name is Susan Nazario. I'm a 6th grade science teacher at John Griffin Middle. This is my 26th year in Cumberland County Schools. I was an Army brat. My dad was stationed in Fayetteville, so I was a product of secondary schools in Cumberland County. So now we get to call this home. I'm excited to be here. I'm currently the first runner-up for Teacher of the Year at Cumberland County.
Awesome. Congratulations, Susan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bobbie Cavnar. I have been teaching for Gaston County Schools for 18 years. I teach senior English, and I was the 2016-17 North Carolina Teacher of the Year and the 2018 NEA Foundation National Teacher of the Year.
Bobbie, we're so thrilled and honored to have you as a guest co-host. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Toni Witherow. I am currently the Director of Secondary Math and Science for Richmond County Schools. I've been in Richmond County for about 3 years, and this is my 20th year in education in North Carolina. Thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Witherow. Dr. Witherow was my assistant principal my first year teaching. For this episode of Tar Heel Teachers at Home, we are chatting with North Carolina House Representative Ashton Clemmons. She is here to discuss a variety of educational topics, including the recently released budget, Leandro, and more. Please welcome Representative Clemmons to Tar Heel Teachers at Home.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be with you.
We're really excited to chat with you, Representative Clemmons, especially after the recently released budget, the first one that we've had since 2018. So we're going to jump right on in. So Representative Clemmons, from your perspective, what did the state get right with the budget, and what were some things that needed to still be included as we continue to have further conversations?
Well, I am going to say what they got right was deciding to take some steps forward, but I don't want to put that in the totally right category because I think we have a whole lot of work we still have to do, particularly in the field of education. And so certainly it is right to have our non-classified staff moving to a $15 an hour or 2.5%, whichever is greater, pay increase. That is certainly the step in the right direction. It is a step in the right direction to have increases in teacher salaries across the board. I would have liked to see them as more. And I am in schools 3 days a week, and I see how utterly exhausted teachers are from the challenges of the past several years. And I'm a mom to 3 kids in elementary school, so I see it through their lens as well. And so I am glad we took some of those steps forward, though would like it to be more and will continue to push to be more. I'm very pleased that some of the, in my opinion, detrimental policy provisions that had been passed in related to education that were in the original House budget, which is one of the big reasons I voted originally against the budget, were taken out so that we could vote on just money, which is really what the budget should be. So I think we got right taking out harmful provisions for education and for teachers. So what we didn't get right yet or still have work to do are definitely support personnel positions across our state. I know and see but we did not have enough support for social and emotional needs of students before the pandemic. But I see as a mom and in the schools that I'm in the dramatic increase in social and emotional needs of our children who have suffered a lot of loss in the past 3 years. And it's a constant churn for many of them. And so I think we have a long way to go with the support personnel that we need. We have a long way to go. So I taught kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and then was an elementary school principal and for 8 years, and then an assistant superintendent. But my heart is really focus also on early childhood, and we left a lot on the table in the area of early childhood. So particular to Guilford County, there's some specific funding for North Carolina A&T that I was working for, some other GTCC, some other things. So I'm happy about some of those things. And like many of our votes, it's not 100% I'm thrilled or 100% it's terrible, but I definitely think the steps forward were worth it in the end.
Thank you for that. So many things to talk about, but you mentioned about the support personnel. The budget does include for 115 positions for school psychologists. Representative Clemmons, where are we going to get these school psychologists? Because we've had several districts for many years that have had these vacancies, but we don't have the people to fill it. So how are we even going to make some inroads with school psychologists here in North Carolina?
Well, I think that is true for school psychologists and across the board in education positions now. You know, the budget includes some strategies for how we recruit and retain school psychologists, and having a new salary schedule will be part of that, and a pilot program to do some training and recruitment of school psychologists. But we have, in my opinion, been simmering on like a level 5 and 6 on strategies that have decreased our teaching and educator workforce across the board in classroom teaching, support positions, school psychologists, school nurses. And so, you know, we have seen a we saw a decrease in the workforce of all of those positions. And then COVID just went from like a simmering on a 5 to going to a 9 or 10 on all of those issues that were already there. And COVID just has made them boil over. And so, you know, I'm glad that we have this focus on school psychologists, and it is not even a small fraction of what we're going to have to do to replenish the workforce that we have. And you know, I hear some of you guys have been in this for a very long time, but veteran teachers are tired and frustrated. And so, you know, the workforce has been an issue in the past several years. It is boiling over as a crisis right now. And I think that is just going to continue as more and more of our current workforce are able to retire. And so, it is a place where I'm glad they're there, but we have got to be seriously working on getting great people into our classrooms and supporting and helping them want to stay once they get there. So you bring up a really good point for school psychologists that I actually think is, you know, much broader than just that one category, which you all know better than I do, because I know you're covering each other's classrooms when people are not there and all of those things.
Thank you. What questions do we have for Representative Clemmons?
Well, as a former teaching fellow, I was very excited to see in the WestEd Leandro report that it's a recommendation to expand the North Carolina Teaching Fellows Program, because I have worked many job fairs and we're just not seeing college graduates that are in the educational field. So what is that looking like at the state level? What are some contingency plans that are coming about right now to try to get these young people into education again?
Yeah. Where did you go as a teaching fellow?
East Carolina.
East Carolina. So I was a teaching fellow at Chapel Hill. So that's how I got my start in education, also was as a teaching fellow. And I'm glad that we're increased. I'm glad we've added some HBCUs, because we know that diversifying our teaching workforce is huge. And, you know, Guilford County alone, where I am, needed 630 new teachers this year, right? That is one district. And we have, you know, 100 plus across the state. So teaching fellows is a small piece of that, though I am a proud advocate of it, because I don't know that I would have gone down the education path without it. So I think it's going to take an all hands on deck approach. We see a decrease in the percentage of people who are choosing a 4-year degree in education. So we certainly need to be increasing that percentage, but that's not going to keep up with what our demands are. And so we also are going to have to be really creative about what do highly effective programs look like, where people are in the classroom and really paired with awesome teachers that they can learn from in the classroom, have the support they need so that we can get people more quickly in our classrooms, but do it in a way where they are learning from the best among us as educators. I actually work at A&T as an adjunct professor with the MAT students, and most of them are lateral. Well, they're all lateral entry. They're in the classroom, and so, you know, my job is, will you tell them to be quiet? Sorry. My job is really, you know, I tell them all the time, I'm like, because many of them, like you all, probably had their own kids, they're doing school, they're teaching. And I'm like, I feel like I'm a cheerleader more than anything. And I say to them, our kids need you in the classroom. What do you need to finish this program successfully? Because I will do it. We will get there. We're going to do it. So, you know, we gotta increase who's coming into the four-year program. So we also have to strengthen the opportunities and options for people that are going to be in the classroom without that four-year program to be as effective as they can be quickly. And I mean, you all know the research about how often people are changing their jobs now. That, you know, the average 22-year-old will have like 9 or 11 jobs in their lifetime. And so that, like, our field wasn't built that way. And we are kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit on how do we, if people are coming in for 5 years, how do we help them succeed and be awesome in those 5 years, and then take that knowledge to what comes next too. So I think too much we focus on it's just four-year programs or it's just these other alternatives. And I actually think it's all of those things that we have to involve. So
I had a question that I kind of wanted to see what you thought about. So this year we mandated the science of reading training through Senate Bill 387. And that's being released in cohorts for our K-5 educators. What are your thoughts on the science of reading and how it's being implemented in the state?
Well, as someone who taught reading, I loved first grade because that was the biggest year of reading growth. So I do think that teaching reading is a specific skill set, and understanding how the brain learns to read, what phonemes, I mean, you know, all of those sciencey things are critical. And so I think having a broad approach to everyone who's going to be teaching reading, having that foundation is strong. What we must also do, and I want to make sure we also know that alone does not develop readers who are lifelong loving literature readers. And so we have to teach them the skills to be able to decode words and comprehend and all of those things. And we need to teach them to love reading. And so I excellent teachers are going to know how to do that, because they would never let their kids not learn to love to read. But you know, I'm worried about new teachers who get really into science of reading, which is, we want them to have that foundation, but we have to make sure we're also developing just a culture that expects and loves reading. And those two things can and should be handheld, but I just want to make sure we don't focus on one at the exclusion of the other. But I know why we want everyone to be moving quickly so we can get, I mean, when you look at the data, it feels like a crisis and we don't want to wait any minute. We have a cat. I love it. Yes. So I know we want everyone to get quickly. I know many, where my kids go to school, they're starting in January, and many of the teachers are like, we cannot do anything else in January, you know.
Yeah, that's where I was going to get at. So here in Clinton City Schools, we're a part of the first cohort, and it's about 100 hours of additional training. Next week, we're staying until 6:30, 2 days to get that done. And I have heard of several counties that are starting to offer some compensation for all the time we're putting into that. Is there any talk of that being done at a state level for these teachers that are putting in all these additional hours to get the training done?
My understanding, but I will double check, Amy, is that the funding was given at the district level, and there were decisions that could be made at district level about, whether you use substitutes so that people could do it, half day in their classrooms, or compensated teachers after hours or on a Saturday and Sunday to get a bunch done. So my understanding is districts are doing it different ways, but there was funding that could be used in different ways, but I will double check and get back with Marlo and he can share that with you. Yeah. Who's next?
One of the topics we were going to discuss today was Leandro. So I was hoping we could maybe get an update on the status of that case, but also how this budget addresses the Leandro case and what we might see as actual teachers in the classroom. Well, how does that apply to us, and what kind of changes will we see?
Yes. So it's an interesting time in the Leandro court case. And, where we are currently is that the judge has ordered the state to, by executive action, take $1.7 billion to fund the first 2 years of Leandro, which I know you all know, but not sure everyone, is up to date on that, and then gave it 30 days basically for them to do what they should have been doing all along. The thing I'll say is, what is frustrating to me is that we talk about Leandro like, well, we'll fund some of it, or we'll do a little, or like, it is literally part of our Constitution, which is actually something North Carolina, like, it's one of my biggest points of pride that we have a Constitution where every child is guaranteed a sound basic education. It fills my heart that is what we believed as a state when we began this state. So, like, it's not an option, nor is it a menu of things that you can do this or you can do that, because the kid in Amy's classroom in Clinton deserves the exact same thing as a child in second grade in Greensboro or in Wilkes County. They all deserve all of the things. And so, we don't really know what to expect in the next several weeks, to be honest, because we've never had anything like this in North Carolina. You all probably see that legislative leadership has really rejected that the courts have any say over their funding decisions. And it will be interesting to see how that plays out. The current budget we passed, the estimates were like 43 to 51%, depending on who you asked, of what should have been in the first 2 years of the Leandro plan. And so, that's nowhere near anywhere close to where it should be. A lot of that was in salary increases, some in school psychologists. So, you all will see that part in the classroom, but what I really think that you would feel the most is support staff that would help you with what's happening in your classroom, EC allotments that were more appropriate for the EC children that we have in front of us. Like, those are the things that would impact you on a daily basis as an educator, not in your personal life with your salary, but an educator on a daily basis. And, those things are not there yet. So we have a lot of work to continue to do. And we have a roadmap to do it. We have a Constitution to tell us we have to do it. So, many of us will be continuing to fight that we do make progress on more bold progress on what's in front of us.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Representative Clemmons, this is a slightly different topic.
Sure.
So House Bill 91 that was recently okayed by the General Assembly, it puts the state board in a position to take a more prominent role in overseeing high school sports. One noticeable difference will be the appeals process. Formerly, there was a panel, a board of directors from the North Carolina High School Athletic Association that listened to appeals. I'm wondering under the new legislation, a panel will be selected by the state board that will hear those appeals. I'm wondering how the General Assembly sees this new process playing out logistically, but also in terms of what the benefits and challenges might be with this new system.
Well, someone told me early at the legislature that a compromise is when everyone is equally unhappy, basically. And I would say that House Bill 91 falls a little bit in that line. I think there were some people who just wanted to completely dismantle the High School Athletic Association altogether. There are other people who believe that they are doing the work that they should be doing and all of the expectations that we have as a state. So I would say what we've landed on is somewhere between both of those polls. But I think there are a lot of concerns at the state level about the amount of resources that are going to be needed at the state level to deal with the appeals as they're coming. And so I know that there's a small group at the state board with some of the staff that are working through how they want to implement this. And I don't think that it's like sealed and ready to be. I haven't seen exactly what that's going to look like, but I do think that they are working to be intentional about how to make this as seamless as possible, and acknowledge that it's a big shift for what's happening. So I don't really have an answer exactly for what it's going to look like, because I think they're still trying to work through exactly what it's going to look like. But I think there are valid concerns about the changes. And I'm glad that folks did work together so that there were not the colossal changes that were originally being discussed and that many of us were worried about.
Sure.
Representative Clemmons, could you tell us your thoughts about this new low wealth supplement? Because Guilford County, one of your county was excluded, one of the 5 counties that was not a part of that new low wealth supplement. So tell us your thoughts about that.
Yes, this controversial topic at the state level. I'm thinking everyone here though is in a county that was included. So, so something we have heard about for years is the additional challenges to what we've already talked about of recruiting and keeping teachers in our smaller and more rural communities. And I think that's partly young folks may not want to live in a small rural community that might be more drawn to a more urban community. But also the teaching supplements have a huge range. And so with a statewide lens, who I worked in Rockingham County, I see the differences. And then of course in Guilford, and then in Davidson County I worked. So I see the differences and the challenges, particularly for those rural communities where people can, like Davidson County, can drive across the border. Maybe Gaston, people could drive, and they would be willing to do a 45-minute drive for several $1,000s more of a salary. So I see at the state level the need for it, and I completely understand how frustrated Guilford County, Wake County, Mecklenburg County, the 5 that were not included are, and I agree with them too. So, I think that I understand where the strategy is coming from, and I wish we had done it in a scaled way that would have included all of our counties, though still trying to balance out with some of our lower wealth, smaller and rural, more rural counties. So, but I get Guilford superintendent saying Chapel Hill qualifies for this and we don't, totally. That is a valid concern. So, I guess I feel all the conflicted feelings people have about it. I understand the purpose of it. I hope for some of our counties that really need the support that they get it. And I hope we can continue to think about the different challenges to recruitment in Guilford and other places and have an approach that includes them as well.
Representative Clemmons, when can we expect to see some of these bonuses and the retroactive pay to start hitting the teachers' paychecks? Because I know that's definitely something that I've been hearing, wondering around the school.
Yes, and I actually asked that last week because where my kids go to school, they ask the exact same question. So I believe January. I believe it should be pretty quickly. So that is my last what I've been told. I hope that is true. So that's what I was last told, January.
Representative Clemmons, any notes about that $1,000 bonus? There is that provision in there for that retention bonus that's not clear in terms of if you receive some type of COVID training or mitigation strategies training. Anything you can tell us about that $1,000 bonus, because that's not very clear.
I think the intention is to include any staff member who was actively involved during the COVID crisis, which would be anyone who was employed. I think that is the intention, but I do think they're working on a technical corrections bill, which always happens. We pass the budget and then we get pages and pages of technical corrections that were missed. And I believe that clarifying language for this is supposed to be included in that technical corrections bill, is my understanding.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Other questions from the panel? Well, at this time, we're going to have questions from our audience. So first up is Dale.
Hello. My question, and I'm from Polk County, represent Polk County Schools.
Okay.
You were speaking earlier about the inability to attract younger teachers to the profession. I am a veteran teacher, 33 years as a matter of fact, and I was just wondering what efforts or what thoughts do you might you have on retaining veteran teachers?
Well, I think our first steps are a step system that does not max out veteran teachers after 25 years on their salary scale. So that's our first step, is that we have to value veteran teachers with our dollars in the way that we profess to value them when they're in our schools. And I think that is probably the most critical strategy. There are some interesting models where veteran teachers are, it can be an advanced teaching role model or something else, but there's a school here that I know of where veteran teachers are kind of taking a lesser workload and doing more direct mentoring, as a lesser in classroom workload, but doing direct mentoring. So I think that's another way to value our veteran teachers and all of their experience, is to keep them in the classroom and helping us develop the next generation of teachers in a way that feels more manageable or respects the time that's been in the classroom. So those are two ideas, though not exhaustive. What would you say is the one thing we need to think about, Dale?
The one thing I would think about, you were talking about support staff. I like that idea. I currently feel like I'm run ragged. You know, I've got very little time between class. I've got to tear down, set up, and so forth. And that is pretty hard to get done. I'm also able to create lessons kind of on the fly. I'm a STEM teacher. And so I'm very creative in my lessons. I'm always searching for new topics, new ideas. You know, I'm trying to involve the community. So any resources, you know, that could help me, you know, bring rich learning opportunities to my students, I'm on the lookout for.
We have
Thank
another
you.
We have another question from Julie.
Okay. Hi, Julie.
Hi. I wanted to ask you, your thoughts on the calendar flexibility issues that come up every year. Right now, we are looking at semesters that are trying to get over in December because of the exam. I teach high school, by the way.
Yeah.
So that makes our semesters unequal. And it's very, very difficult to get that material covered in a semester that's shorter. And I understand that's our system's issue because that's the way we designed our calendar. But what do you feel about allowing more flexibility for each school system instead of state mandated?
I think that it should be school system based. I have filed bills that it should be school system based and co-sponsor bills that it should be school system based. That has passed the House over and over and over again. So the challenge is an unwillingness to have that conversation in the Senate. So I would encourage all of you folks all over the state to talk to your senators in particular, because there is overwhelming support in the House for calendar flexibility. And, you know, the balance is to support our tourism industry. And then there's a small pocket, well, I believe, but there is a vocal pocket of parents who want to ensure that their kids have extended opportunities to do other things in the summer. And I think we can meet all of those needs and still give districts flexibility to do what they need to do for our schools. And so I agree, Julie. I do think there is broad-based support for it. I think there are just a few roadblocks that are very immovable in the Senate. So I think we just have to keep working on it. But I think the message is loud and clear about the need for it. But I think continuing to specifically with our senators advocate is important.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great question, Julie. Representative Clemmons, you have a terminal degree. What is it going to take for us to reinstate master's pay for our educators here in North Carolina?
Well, that's another thing that I actually think there's pretty broad support for in the House that I think we have to keep working on in the Senate. There is a strong advocacy that master's pay did not increase student achievement. There are some studies that show that, and that really motivated the decrease of master's pay. But I think that misses the point that it is not supporting teachers by increasing master's pay is also about treating them as a professional and supporting them to learn and grow. So I do believe, and actually co-sponsored with some Republicans a bill about master's pay, particularly for certain areas they're willing to talk about as a starting point and things like that. So I do think there's more support for that than probably you would think. There, again, just a couple of loud voices that have really been swayed by, it doesn't affect student achievement discussion. So I think we have to keep demonstrating the other ways that it's critical to the education profession, those of us that are advocates for educators.
Representative Clemmons, a few of the questions tonight have been around the difficulties in retaining teachers, recruiting teachers, the frustration that teachers are feeling right now because everyone's tired, right? We've been through a lot, which makes me think about that more broad question about the fact that we are coming, hopefully, out of pandemic teaching. Last year, teachers did things they never knew they could do. And we all expected this year to be much easier. And what we're finding is it is not any easier this year. In some ways, it's much harder. What do you think, and what does the General Assembly see as some of the challenges from last year, some of the lessons learned that should really shape the future of student-centered learning and teaching.
Dr. Witherow, what would you say is what do you attribute this year to being so much harder than last year to? Because I see that and I feel that, I feel it from every educator I know. Yes. But what would you attribute it to? I'm just curious. And then we'll go to Mr. Cavanaugh.
I bet everyone here can speak to
Yeah.
it. I'll just say quickly from my lens, I'm seeing teachers who are coming into face-to-face learning again, but we've learned a lot of things about technology. We've pushed the personalized learning model. Teachers want to give their kids the best of some programs, the best of some online learning. We started out this year saying, make sure your kids still know how to use Canvas. They still know how to do all these things online, because what if we have to go back to that again? And then striking that balance between having students in your room face-to-face and not just having them on a device, and planning for that takes a lot of energy. It's last year teachers were teaching concurrently for a good part of the year, which meant they had to plan a face-to-face lesson and sometimes a hybrid or a blended learning lesson at the same time. And it almost feels like we are still trying to do that day in and day out. Yeah. And I see that as a big challenge right now. Yeah. I know others can speak to more specific things in their classrooms.
Yeah. Mr. Cavanaugh, what were you going to say?
One of the major challenges we're facing is the demands on our time, because we're so short-staffed in every other field. We don't have enough bus drivers, so our students often show up 30 minutes late to school. And now we're trying to catch those kids up while teaching full-time. We don't have enough custodians, so our assistant principal does trash duty during lunch. And we are sweeping and mopping the floors while trying to teach and tutor and do all of those things. We just don't have staff. And then we are also short-staffed for teachers, so that we're having to cover classes whenever a teacher's out, but also we have unfilled positions where there is no teacher in that room. And the solution is, my own daughter's teacher is an unfilled position right now. So there's just a different substitute every day. And if we can get a substitute at all, we only have maybe 2 or 3 substitutes in the entire building. And so if you can't get one of those, then it's up to other teachers to fill those positions. And so as a teacher, we're constantly scrambling to fill gaps in teaching, substituting, bus driving, custodians, coaches, everything. We are just drowning in our staff shortages. But because we keep it running, I think a lot of the general public is not aware that we are doing it. And so they keep thinking this is all working. It's all working, and teachers are going to get a raise and it's all working fine. But it's not working. It's a facade in which we keep it running by scrambling constantly, waiting for someone to fix it or someone to bail us out or somehow to get more staff or more teachers. But I don't see that coming down the road. 3 years ago, I was on a committee for retaining and recruiting teachers because we had a massive teacher shortage. And now it's 3 years later, and that teacher shortage is astronomical. And I don't see a change coming. And that's the thing that's exhausting us, is that when we look to the future, we don't see a change that's going to come. We feel like this is the new normal, and teachers are already looking around at the companies that are hiring here in Charlotte. Amazon keeps stealing all of our custodians and all of our staff because they can make better money and better benefits and less work than what we're offering. But we don't have the flexibility to offer anymore. And so we go, well, we're trapped at the 1.3% increase over the next 2 years that teachers got. And we go, we can't do much more than that, and so we cannot compete with what they're offering people like the teacher next to me who has a master's degree in neuroscience. We can't compete with what she's being offered. And it's just not realistic. And that's what is exhausting us, is what the future looks like for us.
I will say on top of that, all of that, the amount of trainings are drowning. And a lot of these are state mandated, the letters training, the mental health training that's 6 hours long, the ALICE modules, the sex trafficking modules, and not being compensated. And I feel like I cannot plan and give my kids the best of myself because I have X, Y, and Z to do as well. My husband is a probation officer. He just got a 17% raise actually over that. And we are so thankful for that. But all I kept thinking was, why not us? Like, where is that for the teachers? We're grateful for the 5%, but that includes our step bonuses. So that's not really what's accurately being portrayed to the public. It's not 5%, it's much less than that. So like he said, staff shortages, the overwhelming amount of trainings and things that we are being mandated to do, and not nearly enough compensation to do it. But thank you so much for all that you're doing to voice your willingness to help teachers. And I'm so glad that we have educators in your position to help voice those.
Yeah. So I want to respond, but Susan, I want to give you a chance to say too.
I was just going to say, and then you throw in that our children are so different now. Because I mean, before it was, we're working really hard to create these dynamic lessons so we can help our children achieve. But socially, they are very different. They are coming out of homes where we have children, you know, that didn't come in the building at all last year, and they don't know how to interact with classmates. They don't know how to be respectful to us. And so we're dealing with more behavior problems than I have ever seen in 26 years. And when you're trying to put out these little flames of, I'm middle school, so they're already hormonal, already where I am, like I already knew what I was getting into with middle school children, but they're just dynamically different. They don't collaborate well with each other. They don't know how to reach out to adults like they're supposed to. And so it's almost like teaching is taking a back door. Like, it's like, we're just kind of pushing it off to the side. It's like, yes, I know I need to teach, and we know we're expecting to see, you know, gaps in learning and that kind of thing. But I don't know how, all my years of experience have not trained me for the types of kids that are in my room. What they've been exposed to in the digital environment in the last year has grown them in a very different way, have made them, I don't even know how to express it. They're just different children, and I don't know how to meet those needs as well as teach and try to close these gaps of what they missed when they didn't come to school.
Yeah. So the thing I wish I could do is hug every educator I see and pass a budget that has a 17% increase. Because if Ashton Clemmons ruled the world, we would be celebrating some different things. The things that I hear from you all in Dr. Witherow's original question and then in your follow-ups are, we had the education system that we did before that already had a lot of things. Our education system has always only functioned because educators love kids and will do whatever is required for them. Like you're talking about, Mr. Cavnar, we're not going to let kids just suffer, so we'll keep doing it. And as we are going through this, it's too much. It is too much that's being asked. It isn't sustainable. Anyone who knows or loves an educator sees that what is happening right now is not sustainable. And it is not sustainable because we don't have the people. It is not sustainable because our children missed 2.5 years of normal life, and they can't just jump back and pretend that it was, but then the expectations are the same as if it were, right? Like if I'm a 5th grade teacher, they're taking the same assessment. There's, that hasn't adjusted. And on top of it, like Amy's bringing up, all of our response to all of this overwhelming change in kids and is training, because let's help them with training, right? And so that just adds to this overall exhaustion. So I think Dr. Witherow's question and framing it was, what are the challenges we see and where do we go? The challenge as I see it is what I was describing. The policies of the past several years have been to in my opinion, deprofessionalized education in lots of different ways. That just cranked up. School choice has been decisions that have been made to increase competitiveness, which just cranked up. I'm sure you all see that, but like our kids are in public schools, but lots of people made different choices with COVID, and we haven't yet come back from all of that. And so in the short term, we have to continue to advocate for these small improvements that can be made. But in the long term, we have got to rebuild a state that is committed to our traditional public school system as a functional pillar to who we are as a state. And we are a long way from that at this point. And it isn't sustainable to do a pilot here or a program there or a 1.3%. Those are not sustainable things after we've had this simmering and now boiling of the past several years. So I wish, like I said, that I could do all the things I think should happen. All I can be is the one person that I am, and I try to do what I can in my space. And like, your voices we need. I was talking to someone working with some districts, and she said, we were talking about the mask mandates and like the school boards having to vote on them every month and what a nightmare it's become for superintendents and things like that. And, I was like, well, because the state of emergency isn't the same, and now we're technically not in the same level of state of emergency. And she said, Ashton, our schools are in more of a state of emergency than they've ever been. And so I think you're exactly right, Mr. Cavanaugh. People think schools are open and we're dropping kids off, and so it must be humming along. And I think it's on all of us to just say how not true that is. And that the current children in front of us deserve our best, but our future as our state won't sustain an education system on the verge in the way it is. We cannot be the best North Carolina if we have teachers feeling all the ways that you guys are describing, and kids who have these needs that we aren't figured out yet. So it's a lot. And the hardest part of being a representative is, and not just in education, but particularly in education, because I love it and it's part of my heart, is I just feel such deep responsibility to you all and the educators I see every day, and the women I meet, that are incarcerated and working on their stories, and all I can promise is to hold those stories in my heart and fight for what I think our state deserves, and be grateful to each of you for doing the same. I wish I had more than that to offer, because you deserve more than that. But that's all I know to give. And I'm grateful to all of you for being part of it.
And we're very grateful to you, Representative Clemmons, for joining us for this conversation. We appreciate you helping to unpack all these different policies and the state of education here in North Carolina. And you have an open invitation to come back and join us again for continued dialogue.
I will come back anytime. I'm so grateful to be able to be with any teacher. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We'd also like to thank our audience so very much for watching our program. We hope that you will engage us on our social media platforms. Please follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @TarHillTeachers. Please like our Facebook page. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit our website, tarhillteachers.com. And on all of our social media platforms, please use our hashtag TarHillTeachers so we can find all of your great comments. We also would like to thank our wonderful group of co-hosts for joining us for this conversation: Amy Tart, Susan Nazario, Bobbie Cavnar, and Dr. Toni Witherow. We also like to thank our special virtual audience for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time on Tar Heel Teachers at Home.